Welcome to tonight's One Spirit gathering, entitled Divine Metaphors. Take a leap of faith and fancy as we soar off the cliff together to discern and share our own metaphors, before landing safely by the end of the hour. How can we describe the indescribable? Metaphors use an image of one object to convey information about another idea. Ideally, the comparison bypasses logical thought or reason and gives new meaning to both the original object and the subsequent idea. It is the fundamental building block of poetry and art, but can be seen in all forms of language. An example: painting a picture with words. In our title for this evening, the word divine is used both as an adjective, describing something supremely good, heavenly, godlike, or transcendent, and also as a verb, meaning to discover by intuition or insight. Together we will practice both inward and outward exploration as we discern and then share our own metaphors of the divine. Our facilitator for this evening is Dr. Rob Spencer, who brings a tremendous variety of life experience to his vocation as a metaphorist. A medical doctor, interfaith-interspiritual minister, published author, patented inventor of a device to walk on water, glider pilot and instructor with soaring flights in waves of air to over 20,000 feet. A former professional clown, he brings humor and whimsy to his current work as teacher, listener, speaker, advocate, and coach. A 2019 seminary graduate of One Spirit, he lives in Concord, New Hampshire with his wife, Louise, and their big black beautiful dog, Emma.
So welcome, everyone. I would love to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves, but I think that would take the whole hour. So what I'm going to ask you to do instead is to write in the chat your name, where you live, how you're connected with One Spirit, or if you're not previously connected, how you learned about tonight's gathering. Go ahead and type your message, but don't hit enter yet. Wait to hit enter until I let you know that it's time. But write your name, where you live, how you are connected with One Spirit, and if you're not previously connected, how you learned about tonight's gathering. And I'll share with you a lovely metaphor I just heard describing what we're doing. We're going to all hit enter at once, and there'll be an eruption like a volcano of all of the messages on chat. But what this avoids is having chat's messages show up while you're writing, and that's going to be useful later on when we're sharing other things by the chat. So everybody ready for a volcano eruption? If you've entered your whole answer, go ahead and hit enter. Great. Feel free to glance through the chat if you like, or at the end, I'm going to ask you all to save the chat so you'll have it as a document and be able to look through it at your leisure. If you're comfortable now, I'd like to start with our first reading. Give me just a moment. This is a piece that I wrote during seminary after we studied integral theory, but it was conceived during Quaker worship. Penny was a very small coin made of copper. As the years passed, she was stored and spent and stored and spent again and again. Her body became dull and worn bit by bit. She hardly knew who she was anymore. Finally, she went to see a therapist who helped remove the dirt and polished away the dullness. While not new, she felt shiny again. Her markings revealed more clearly who she was, even showing the date and place where she was minted. She began to know herself. As Penny began to comprehend more about her value as a coin, she visited a church where she met other coins. Some were pennies like her, others were different, nickels, dimes, and quarters. As she got to know them, she began to realize that she was part of something greater than herself. Together, she and the other coins were part of a congregation worth multiple dollars. And their congregation could join with others worth 5, 10, 20, 50, or even hundreds of dollars across the country. Thousands or even millions could be counted. Being the curious coin that she was, she wondered if there was more to the story. She searched beyond her own church, even beyond her own country. In her travels, she met coins with markings different from hers and unlike any she had seen in her congregation or other churches of her own religion. These new friends looked different on the surface. Their markings said nothing like cent or dollar. Instead, they had words like peso, franc, dinar, ruble, rupee, dram, yuan, and others. She came to know through interfaith dialogue that another country's currency, while different from hers, was quite similar in many ways and served exactly the same purpose. Penny was pleased that she had gained a broader sense of herself as not just a coin, but one that represented a particular denomination among many wonderful currencies used around the world. However, she still had a nagging feeling that there was more to the story. What did it mean to be a coin? Not just a penny or a peso, but any coin. What was it all about? In her search for deeper understanding, she finally met a teacher who shared wisdom about money in general. She learned that we, as physical objects, a coin or even a bill, represent something more abstract, independent of our physical properties. That abstract something remained constant, even when we became dull, dirty, worn, or torn. We each had a value that couldn't be diminished as long as we lived. A penny was always worth 1 cent, no matter what. What a comforting feeling. She took it on faith that the value of being worth something was constant. But what did that really mean? Searching further, she came to understand that a coin or a bill was only a marker or placeholder, a tool for buying and selling. She even learned about theories of money, such as a gold standard, where each coin was thought to be a substitute for something more real or substantial. This was another leap of faith. How could a piece of copper, small and insignificant like her, represent something more sublime and precious as gold? Her understanding continued to grow and evolve as she was exposed to more ideas, each agreeing with but transcending the previous ones, raising her understanding to a new level of complexity. She met a professor of economics who shared about market theory, things like inflation and recession, cycles of boom and bust. So the concept of maintaining a constant value, even as the pennies grew older, was true at one level, but not completely accurate a description of the whole truth of who she really was. There was a more complex reality as more advanced levels were discovered and appreciated. As she became more comfortable with receiving and accepting new levels of understanding, she also met an interspiritual mystic who showed her something really amazing and mind-bending. Not only was she, as a copper penny, capable of representing value of an abstraction such as money, but her body was simultaneously a physical object made of the same matter that was used to create copper wires. These wires could carry electrical power, send signals of sound from one place to another, or even make up part of a filament in a glass bulb that generates light and heat. This light and heat was the same kind of abstract energy that was used to extract copper ore from the ground and transport it to mints, where it was used to create new coins just like her. Her body may die one day, but the substance of which it was created is immortal. She was no longer just some small, separate, independent piece of metal, a coin or currency. She was the stuff from which miracles are actually made. Friends, I'd like to offer the opportunity now for us to gather in silent worship, similar to Quaker worship, but feel free to use your own method of centering and just allow yourself to listen inward. The Quaker belief is that there's the divine in everyone, sometimes called the inner light. And during worship, we listen for that inner voice to speak. And what I'd like you to do now is listen as we contemplate the question, how does the divine manifest in me? I've put the question on the screen, but I want you to feel free to adapt the question to fit any answers that may come to you. As you center in the silence, pay attention to any thoughts or sensations that bring you closer to the divine, whatever is magnificent, mysterious, and see if you can coin a phrase, like Penny did in the story, that describes what the experience is. Maybe a couple of phrases or words, and go ahead and type them in the chat. But like before, don't press enter yet. Feel free to type as many thoughts or messages that come to mind on this question. And in a few minutes, I'll invite you to press enter and share the information in the chat. We're going to stay with this question for just a couple more minutes, but feel free to enter your answers into the chat. And if another answer comes to you, feel free to enter another one. So I'm sure we could all stay inward and have more thoughts come to mind. And I hope that you will continue to do this practice at another time on your own. But for now, if you could finish your thought and go ahead and hit enter into the chat. There's so much being shared. Obviously, we can't read them all, but we will be able to save them. So I'm just looking to see if the volcano eruption is coming to an end and everybody's gotten to enter what they want to enter. There's still a little bit of lava flowing. And if you have other thoughts that you want to share, feel free to keep sharing them even as we move on. And also, even as you do this, if you do this on your own later on, or if you're a person who's watching the recording and doing this, feel free to send your thoughts to me by email or via my website, and I'll give that information to you at the end. Or if you're watching it on YouTube, feel free to enter into the comments some of the thoughts that you might be having. So this was the looking inward. I'd like next to offer an opportunity for us to look outward. And I'd ask you to look in the space that you're in the room that you're sitting. If you have a window, feel free to look out the window and focus on an object. There are indigenous peoples and others that have a belief that there is divine in every being, every living being, but also in every plant and every physical object on the earth. And so for this exercise, for this invitation, I'd like you to explore the environment that you find yourself in right now and just choose some object and focus on it. And then ask yourself the question, how does the divine manifest in it? Pick something specific that you can see or hear or smell or touch, either in the room or that you can perceive in the world right now. And I'll post the question as well. So sometimes lava overflows before the big eruption. So we're already having some people enter into the chat, but feel free now to go ahead and press enter and share your thoughts in the chat. And go ahead and do your best to finish up the thought that you're experiencing and share it with us. But again, feel free to come back to this practice of looking outward at a specific object and contemplating its manifestation of the divine. So I'd like to share just one more prompt. And this one is a little more abstract. So it doesn't have to necessarily be either inward or outward. Feel free to adapt the question to fit whatever answers come. And I'll post it for you. Feel free to start sharing in the chat by pressing enter. And if you can, try to complete the thought that you're working on and go ahead and share it with us. Knowing that you can always come back and do this again. So Elaine, I see your hand is raised. I'm gonna go ahead and let you unmute yourself.
Okay. I loved when you typed in, if, I can't remember exactly how you put it, if you don't find an answer to the question, then what was it? How does the question change?
Feel free to adapt the question to any answers that might come to you.
That just caused such an opening in me. It just widened the field so instantly and so nicely. I just thought that was great.
Anyone else that wants to speak up, just raise your hand on the reactions tab. Susan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you for this opportunity. So I always come to the gathering when I can, and I especially wanted to come tonight, Rob, because I always enjoy seeing your glowing, smiling, divine face. And this experience was liberating, fun, life-affirming. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share.
Anyone else that either couldn't share in the chat or wants to reflect on the practices themselves or anything else? Well, I'm going to ask David to play a video in just a moment. And it was a video that I created that shared a speech to my One Spirit class, the class of 2019, shortly before our commencement. David, can you go ahead and share that?
The word commencement suggests we're on a journey. But on what path? Here's a metaphorical map of the terrain. Picture a wagon wheel laid on its side. The spokes represent the different faith traditions. Along each spoke is a spectrum of adherents of that religion, ranging from their fundamentalists, who find truth solely in that tradition's scripture, to their mystics, whose ultimate reality is an experiential understanding of the divine. The fundamentalists reside at the outer ends of the spoke, near the rim, while the mystics are drawn towards the center. Notice that the mystics are closer to each other at the hub than they are to the fundamentalists even of their own religion. Personally, I like hanging out at the hub, where I've gotten to meet so many of you. But we may be called to travel along any or all of these spokes to meet with people where they are. Sometimes we have to straddle more than one spoke, or even take a leap of faith between them into uncharted territory to be with people who are spiritual but not religious. Meeting with others in our travels, what are we meant to do? As interfaith, interspiritual ministers, or simply as fellow human beings? Everything we really need to know, we learned on the first day of seminary, when we were asked to gaze into each other's eyes and say to one another, "I am here to be seen, and I see you." And then reply, "I too am here to be seen, and I see you." Gazing into each other's eyes, seeing another's soul and being seen, we float above the terrain, taking in the panoramic view, seeing the spirit wheel as one solid, undivided disc, inseparably encompassing the wagon wheel, its hub and spokes, and all of the spaces between them. For the moment, There are no spokes. There is no hub. We are all one.
So the website that was on the screen at the end, I'm going to put it in the chat as well, is the way you can send any other thoughts that you would like to share. There's a contact page on the website. There's also an archive page where you can see the videos, the video that you just saw. And also you could get access to Penny's story as well. We have a few more minutes for sharing if anybody wants to raise their hand and unmute themselves. Well, I'm Quaker, so I can sit in silence for a long time, but I'm also happy if anybody wants to unmute themselves. In fact, thank you, David, Renata, for being our tech support person. And thank you all for being here tonight. David, I would suggest that we simply allow people to unmute themselves now at will and share whatever they'd like.
The sense I got from tonight is the inner and the outer, and how the two meet, and how we can each morning remind ourselves that the divine is within us, and that we can find it in moments of awe and wonder, and in nature and the eyes of another soul. Wherever we go, if we are intentional and mindful, and then every day just seems to become a miracle every day. So. And thank you, and amen. I also have to say, it's just wonderful to sit in these things. I hated Zoom meetings before, but look at all the same people you can look at the same time. And then when they smile, it's just like all these light bulbs go off, and you just see all this sweet happiness in all these people. And it just, it's a wonderful experience.
Rob, I like your wagon wheel analogy or metaphor, but I would have reversed it. I would have put the fundamentalist clinging to the axle in the middle, and the mystics who have actually contact with the ground on the outside.
I like the groundedness of the mystics idea too. I think metaphors are meant to be shared and then used as we will. They're guideposts, not roadblocks.
Rob, I love being in your gentle, loving presence, and am just so in love with the reminder of your wonderful metaphor that I got to hear several years ago, along with a couple of other people who are here tonight. So thank you so much for this offering. Yeah.
I'm reflecting on how the inner and the outer are almost the same thing, really. There's manifestations of the same thing, and it's hard for me to think of them separately.
Hey, Rob, this is Joe. and hopefully I won't have cause an echo with my wife here, who's still in the room. I'm just struck by the parallels here about the term divine and its relationship to the Judeo-Christian traditions that so many of us have been brought up with. So I wouldn't say struggle, but I'm looking for those parallels, and no further answers or questions. So.
It was certainly not my intention that we would answer all the questions tonight. And I'm so looking forward to gleaning the wisdom that's been shared in the chat. I'm very, very looking forward to that.
I'm hoping you'll turn it into a poem.
We'll see.
Or at least a pun.
We're almost
I
at
have
the
to say, Rob, there's a few people who know you well here.
Well, it surprised some people, but didn't shock them to learn that I used to work professionally as a clown. So
Yes.
we're almost done with the hour. I would suggest that we take the last minute or so to just everybody unmute and just say thank you and love to everyone.
Your Zoom face.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
everyone.
Peace to everyone.
Thank you.
Seeing your
Thank
faces in Zoom is
you.
divine.
It's been wonderful.